I am here at the Florida Studio Theater with Kate Alexandra and Beth Knopik.
On a great risk. Were there children? How did we know? I also reached out to Ken Kinsey at Tidewell Hospice, who's actually a personal friend and colleague. And I said, what do you think about this? He was thrilled because grief and trauma are part of their bailiwick and part of their whole mission. And so we said, let's work together. And so we conceived that first program, and we wanted it in the theater. I especially did, because I didn't want it, we weren't therapists. We were human beings that were artists. And yet Tidewell provided the therapist to come in so that if there was a part of the day that was very serious for the youth, they would work with them. But the whole day was planned, and it was a pilot program for them to experience dance, acting, art. They made memorials. They were little shrines in pictures where they collected loving items from their families, from the person that was ill or dead, and they put it together. So the whole day just moved and moved and moved. And we were, I don't even have words. It was like we entered a gateway with these sensitive, beautiful young people that had nowhere. And what better way to express than art? When we brought the team together, we had to have really sensitive people, and Tidewell provided the therapists. And one thing that was very important to me was to ask if Roger's Knopik was available, and would he even be interested, because we didn't know how he'd feel. And Rogers came, and from that very first day, he was actually the leader for all of us, and I mean the adults, because by his very presence, by his innate understanding, he could greet each young teenager with a sound in his voice that said, I know, and I believe in you.
Do you want to add anything, or no?
As a parent who is wants to be there for the child that has survived the loss of a sister, I would have really appreciated, it would have meant the world to me if I had had a program like this for Rogers to attend as a 13-year-old in the very beginning when Leanna had passed away. I didn't know how to manage him and his grief and to get him to open up about his grief. And anytime I did, he would just shut down. And so at that point, I just decided, well, the more I push him, the more he backs down, and I just can't continue that because I didn't feel like that was healthy for him. So, but what I did kind of enforce, I guess, is that I wanted him to go to a traditional therapist, family therapist, child therapist, for 3 sessions. And I felt like as a parent, that's something that I just felt like I needed to do. And he did, and he went to all 3, but I don't think they once talked about his grief. I don't think they once talked about his sister, which is fine too, but it didn't allow him to express his grief at all, really, on a level that he would have had he been at a program like the Blue Butterfly program.
So Kate, can you just tell us a little bit about, from your point of view, what did you see that the children were gaining from this program?
I think when you're in grief, you need the world to slow down first, because everyone's moving ahead, and you have relatives and friends that all maybe came and paid their condolences, and they go back to their lives. And when they go back to their lives, you are left. And maybe you aren't ready to join in that grand rush of the world, and you have to. You have to go to school, you have to do your work. And they're caught between two lands, a psychic landscape of emotion that still is for their whole life will work it out. So what we did is slow the world down. And then we said, what do you need and what do you feel? The predominant thing we heard was, we need everyone to get off their cell phones and listen. So we created an opening piece where that could express that. And by that I mean opening piece was, we created an art piece where adults were walking fast, not paying any attention, on their cells and talking. And a couple of the students, the teens, said, listen, please stop, please listen. And we put music under it and lights. And when the audience came and the families and they saw it, they understood about listening in a whole different way, in the way only art can express. So not only were they able to express their need, but they were able to create a bond with 10 other students with the same humanity. And when we bond with other people with that humanity, ultimately we know we're not alone. And if there's anything that makes us feel alone, it's death.
You know, the being with others who have had the similar loss is so important to getting through the grieving process, because the isolation can keep you stuck. And there's just so much power in being with others that have had a similar loss.
Hey, Kate, so we're all very interested in, where did the name Blue Butterfly come from? And, what was its origin?
Well, again, it was kind of an organic inspiration, because we started thinking about the program, and I have to go back to Leanna as well, because one of my predominant experiences of Leanna that kind of had an iconic moment was she was walking across the street to have a performance for her recital. While other kids were trudging in the sun, she was half in the air. She was dancing. She was so light, and there was a lightness of spirit. So in thinking of what name would this be, we wanted a lightness of spirit. And butterfly came up, because a butterfly symbolizes in ancient texts, in many texts all over the world, transcendence. It moves from a cocoon where it's a completely different organism into a butterfly. And then the color blue came because not to be afraid of grief and not to be afraid of the blue part of ourselves. In jazz, that there's blue notes, there's blue depths, there's twilight. We, especially I think in the American dream, tend to live in the sun, and we often tend to push away the blue and the deep aspects of our nature. So our butterfly was going to be the most gorgeous blue.
All right, so Kate, it's just such a beautiful story, and thank you so much for sharing, how this all began, and Beth, you as well. And I just wanted to, ask you, how did things evolve so that, Tidewell Hospice got involved, and how they now are doing the Blue Butterfly program? How did that all happen? And are you still, is Florida Studio Theater still involved?
Yes, I want to say that it was a mutual partnership, and we were both so astounded by that initial experience. We wanted it to grow. And Ken Kinsey over at Tidewell, they wanted to expand it. They wanted to bring it year round. And for us, it was a theater program called Blue Butterfly, but they wanted to take that basic concept and start supporting families and all the resources that a family needed, children, and not only in a summer program, but year-round, weekly, coming for dinners and activities, so that the family really had a support network. And it has exploded. And I know Ken will be anxious to talk to you about that. if you have a young person, whether elementary school or teens, and they have experienced some sort of trauma in their life, either recently or within the last year, and they need a place, and you would like them to have a place, Tidewell Foundation and Florida Studio Theater are working together this summer to present 2 theater camps. You can get on our website, or you can contact Tidewell, and either one will be glad to help you. There is no cost. As we understand, most families have enough to deal with, and it is graciously funded by Tidewell Foundation and the Barancic Foundation and Florida Studio Theater. So thank you very much.